Hello, everybody, and welcome to Project HR, a podcast dedicated to building better workplaces. Project HR is brought to you by Projections, an IRI company. IRI helps organizations navigate workplace challenges, improve employee engagement and productivity, manage labor relations, and implement effective communication strategies to achieve their goals. For more information, you can visit Projections online at projectionsinc.com and IRI at iriconsultants.com. I am Jennifer Oraquah, Director of Business Development for IRI, and your host for today's episode of Project HR. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of this recording, there are a record 11.5 million job openings in the United States. And HR professionals understand all too well the challenges of filling those vacant positions. However, as we all fight this talent war, it's important that we not lose sight of the employees we currently have. Keeping them motivated and engaged maintains productivity, fosters better teamwork and collaboration, and prevents us from the task of having to replace them. So today, we're talking about retention, and joining me is Joe Galvin, Chief Research Officer at Vistage, the world's largest CEO coaching and peer advisory organization for small and mid-sized business leaders. Joe recently wrote a fantastic article on this subject for Inc. titled Hiring Isn't Enough. Winning the Talent Game Starts with Retention. Joe, thanks so much for joining me here today on Project HR.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Now, Joe, in your article, you set the stage by comparing today's Great Resignation with the Great Recession of a decade or so ago. Can you share that comparison with us? Give us a little perspective?
Yeah, it's really interesting. If you've seen the chart, it tells so many stories. But if you go back to the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, the economy was fundamentally broken. Thousands and thousands of jobs were lost. And if you lost your job in '08 or '09, it was 6, 12, 18 months before you got reemployed, and then maybe one or two levels below that. If you fast forward to the recession following the pandemic, the economy wasn't broken, the economy was shut down. And almost as instantly as we turned it back on, the jobs recovered. In fact, if you look at the data, it took 8 years to recover the quit rates following the Great Recession. It took less than a year to recover that, and now it's gone well beyond that. If you look at the chart, you can see how it radically jumped up. So this concept that the environment we're in today following a recession is radically different because the economy wasn't broken, it was shut down. Now, what's also interesting about that is the Great Resignation has gotten a lot of attention. And I think it's because it's a great commentary and it's an easy data point, people that quit. But I think a better definition or a better way to think about it is what I call the big upgrade, right? The big upgrade. Workers at every level, hourly workers, skilled workers, knowledge workers, managers and leaders, they're all looking for the big upgrade. And that upgrade could take the form of more money, a job with greater roles and responsibilities, a bigger title, better benefits. Maybe it's a better working condition. You know, it said that hourly workers will cross the street for another $1 an hour. Well, they'll go down the block for $6 an hour in better working conditions. Someone willing to trade in a hot, stinky sweatshop environment for a cool, safe environment, they're going to make that move.
Mm-hmm.
And because workers have the opportunity, because in our most recent data, 65% of CEOs are increasing headcount in the year ahead, the power has shifted. And it shifted about the middle, around 2016, as all of a sudden there were more jobs than there were people looking for jobs. So the Great Resignation is really about people looking to upgrade their opportunities because everyone's looking to hire. And you take that and you multiply it by a couple of factors. One, I think during the course of the pandemic, we all at some level reconsidered our personal priorities and purpose and what was valuable to us. People got a taste of the work from home lifestyle and didn't want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of pent up demand generated some of this transition, but that's also exacerbated by what were requests but now demands of millennials and Zs who generationally want more from a job than just income.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be connected to something. They want to be part of a purpose. People fundamentally want to feel that their work is valued and they contribute to something greater than themselves. And that's led to this big upgrade as the opportunities exist. And the technology has made it so easy now for people to look and shift jobs. Mm-hmm. So there's this great turmoil going on. And it's all about the workers having the power, having the opportunities to find environments consistent with what's most important to them.
So do you feel that talent acquisition and talent retention are typically given equal effort in the drive to maintain staffing levels?
I don't think they were, but I think they are. And I say that because where everyone is looking to hire, The talent wars are a zero sum game,
Hmm.
meaning every person I hire is someone that you lost or
Right.
someone lost.
Hmm.
It's not like there's this influx of new workers into the marketplace. There's not. So the Great Resignation, the big upgrade. This is all about people shifting jobs and looking for something better.
Hmm.
Consequently, retention and hiring, they almost need to be reversed, because before you can build a dynamic and successful hiring strategy, you have to lock down the retention of the people that you have. Losing someone can be devastating to your business, especially in small and mid-sized businesses where Vistage thrives. In a big company with thousands of employees, if somebody leaves, well, it's next person up in their shift, and you can manage to that. In a smaller business of 20 or 50 or 100 employees, you lose someone, it really hurts.
Sure.
It really affects productivity. By the way, it's going to take longer and cost more
Hmm.
to find someone less qualified and with less experience to take that role. And then it's the amount of time to get them back to productivity. So before you can hire, you have to have your retention strategies locked down, and you have to recognize a very simple fact, and that is that every worker is a free agent. They can choose at any point in time to either answer the phone because their phone's ringing, or pick up the phone and reach out to begin that process and cross that emotional threshold of it's time for me to consider a change.
Well, and you alluded to the fact that obviously it takes longer and it costs more to hire somebody than it does to hang on to the people you have. What are the real benefits of employee retention efforts?
Well, I think one, any collection of humans creates a culture unto itself. So if you've got a constant movement of people through your business, you're going to have a semi-stable to unstable culture.
Mm.
I also think that by having people in place, especially again in small and mid-sized businesses where we live, um, business processes and workflows are built as much around the people that do them as the actual process itself. So people learn that Joe does this and Jennifer does that and someone else does this, and those workflows build. When you
Mm.
pull someone out, that workflow breaks down,
Sure. Yeah.
and you need to bring someone in, and those personalities have to meld, and that has to be rebuilt versus a big company that lives and dies by that process.
Hmm.
Um, and so it just becomes so important to keep people, not only because it'll cost you more to get someone less experienced, but the time it takes to get someone up to speed, and then the hit or miss likelihood of making a good hire and a cultural fit makes that such a gamble.
And so, we often talk with our clients about, retention rates. And of course, they vary industry to industry and facility to facility. So how do we know if retention is actually a problem for us? What's a good retention rate?
Well, again, it's the typical consulting answer, right? It depends, and it does
Hmm.
by industry and by role. But I think you need to break retention into two pieces. One, there is the voluntary retention, the voluntary turnover. These are people that you want to push out of the business.
Mm.
These are people that, for whatever reason, they don't fit, they didn't adjust, they didn't adapt, they were a bad hire. That doesn't change. It's the involuntary retention, or the people that you want to keep that leave, that hurt you, and that's what has to be measured closely. And I guess the answer to your question would be a good retention rate is one that's better than it was last month or last quarter.
Right.
As every industry, every business, everyone's got their own nuances. So the important factor is, one, do you track it, and do you distinguish between the people that you want to leave and the people that you want to keep? And then, is it getting better or worse? We saw a real shift in retention rates in our community over the last year, where if you go back to our Q2 survey in 2021, which was done in June, we saw 24% said they had seen decreased retention rates.
Hmm.
And that grew to 29% in Q4 of 2021. Came back a little bit in Q1, back to 19%, but we're seeing this increase in a decrease in retention. And I think that's reflective, again, of the movement, the pent-up demand. And again, there's generational influence of folks looking for something that matches how they want to live, how they want to work, what they want to be a part of,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
flexibility demands that are no longer requests.
So, you were talking a minute ago about, beating our best. How do we look today versus how did we look yesterday? Can talent acquisition and talent retention, can we combine our energies there and have those happen at the same time? Should they happen at the same time?
I don't know that they should happen at the same time. They should be separate and distinct because the actual activities and outcomes are different. But the underlying factors that make both of those data points better are very, very common.
Hmm.
I like to think of employees the way you think of customers, right? When you
Hmm.
think about acquiring customers, you build a marketing plan to go out and acquire customers. When you think about retaining customers, again, marketing has two functions: to generate attention for what you offer and to relieve post-purchase dissonance.
Hmm.
So when you think about creating the message about why your business is someplace that people want to work, that message is one that you need to obviously amplify in the marketplace to attract and hire people. But you also need to focus that very intensely into your existing employees. Just because they work for you today doesn't mean they're going to work for you tomorrow. As I said, every worker is a free agent.
Hmm.
They've got opportunities. There's phone ringing. They were at a social event last weekend where some friend talked about, yeah, I got this new job with 30K more and this and that. And they're thinking, why not me?
Hmm.
So, what are the marketing messages that you craft and create that you deliver in a consistent message, a consistent manner to your existing employees? What are you talking about? Here's our culture. Here's what is important. Here's an example of someone living our culture. Hey, we're doing an employee development day. Creating those messages that continue to reinforce the values and benefits beyond the job and the income of why people want to work for you. And I think that's really important. I mean, culture is so many things and it's so important. It was before, it still is. But thinking about your customers, thinking about your employees the
Hmm.
way you think about your customers and the role of messaging to them is really, really important as your first line of defense for people deciding that it's time for them to go.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's a perfect way to look at it. All right, Joe, I'm going to have to take a sponsorship break right now. But when we return, I want to get into what factors are involved in building an employee retention strategy. So stay with us.
So, you've provided your supervisors with the training they need to create a positive environment and keep your company union-free. But can they put that knowledge into action? Wise Words e-learning will teach your supervisors how to respond appropriately to tough employee questions about unions, including questions about dues, collective bargaining, promises, and more. Based on solid adult learning theory, Wise Words guides supervisors, helping them practice their skills in a fun and engaging format that sticks with them over time. Wise Words e-learning is delivered in microbursts of learning and is available online 24/7. Your leaders can practice their skills anytime and anywhere there's an internet connection on any device. Wise Words training will protect your company from ULP charges and give your leaders the confidence to connect with employees. Learn more and sign up for a demo at projectionsinc.com today.
I'm back with Joe Galvin, Chief Research Officer at Vistage. Now, Joe, in your article, you outlined 4 ways to future-proof your retention and hiring strategy. Can you share those with us?
Yeah. We talk about the importance of how you need to future-proof this. And we really think it starts with retention, the importance of retaining people and keeping people on board and doing those things. So that's point one. Next, so you start with one, how do you address your current salaries? Right? We know that 72% of our CEOs are increasing salaries as a way to attract people. Well, we know that money talks, and that's why that's important. But in addressing salaries for people you're looking to hire creates an issue inside your organization for the people that are there. Humans talk, we know that. And even in a remote or a hybrid environment, people are going to talk and they're going to know. And they're going to see, oh, well, they brought in this new person, Susan, who's not as qualified, doesn't have as much experience, but she's making more money than me.
Mm.
So addressing salaries become part of that future proofing. And what are you doing to ensure that you remain competitive and that without throwing money at people, but you address those current salaries? That was one.
Mm-hmm.
2 is you have to work on a culture. Culture was critical before COVID hit. Culture was. I had a CEO ask me. He said, Joe, what does culture look like? And I said, well, look in the mirror, because a culture is a direct reflection of you. And that's why culture is so important. And again, the millennials and the Zs were looking for culture before COVID. Now they're demanding it.
Mm-hmm.
What's challenging is in this new hybrid environment is that how do you extend culture to people that maybe only come to the office once a week, twice a week, or not at all? And more importantly to that, inside that culture is what are you doing to ensure your managers, those people that manage people in your organization, what are they doing to pull that culture through to that team and to keep those remote and those hybrid employees connected? We like this concept, number 3, of stay interviews. Every leader, every HR organization should know who those key employees are at every level.
Mm-hmm.
Conduct a stay interview, maybe on a biannual or twice a year or 4 times a year, but go through what's important to that employee. Share with them, here's your benefits package. Here's our employee development plan for you. Here's how we see your career developing here. Help us understand how things have changed for you or what you want to do. Conducting stay interviews is a way to ensure that you stay connected to employees as their lives and their person as they change. People change over time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to that point, conducting stay interviews is a role for the manager. Now, I mean, HR can do that, and that's great, but it's more important to empower that manager of those workers.
Mm-hmm.
No one has a greater impact on my day-to-day life as an employee than the person I work for. My manager, my boss, they set the activities, they set the goals, they set the objectives, they measure performance, they drive culture, they create the environment that I work in. So that leads to point number 4 is you need to invest. People need to be investing in their managers. If we think about how much work has changed, especially for the knowledge workers and those that can work hybrid or remote, the people that manage them, no one's job has changed more than that person who used to be able to manage by walking around.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the MF95 world. That's not a new gang. It's not a new mask. It stands for the industrial era analog construct of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
I am paying for your time. I expect you to show up at 8 and stay till 5. And oh, look, Joe comes in at 7 and stays till 6. He must be a hard worker. Or maybe I just create an illusion that I work hard. A lot of folks have said, how do I trust that people are working when I can't see them when they're working from home? It's like, well, how do you know they were working in the office? Right? The same people that didn't work in the office aren't working at home,
Right.
just as the same people that worked in the office are working at home. So that gets torn down. But the point I'm getting to is that the changes to the dynamics of what it means to lead workers has changed more than any other role as a result of this pandemic, right? Which means if you're not investing in those managers, not just the traditional core management skills, but they now have to be leaders. They have to create a vision for where the organization is going. They have to be able to connect what each individual does to how it's contributing to that vision. They have to be coaches, right? A manager is going to say, you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z and result in 100. A coach is going to say, well, Joe, you said your goal was to get beyond 100, but you didn't do the right activities. You haven't been fulfilling on this. You're not doing enough of that. We need to build skills here. Workers want a leader, they want a coach, and they need a manager. Consequently, one of these 4 key pillars is to invest in those managers, build their leadership skills, enhance their ability to be able to go and do things that they couldn't do before. And that's why that's so important in today's world that we invest in those. Those are the 4 pillars that we see. But again, it comes back to, again, in my mind, it comes back to retention. You got to keep people on board. You got to keep them engaged. And you have to make sure that they feel like they are part of something. And this is, again, as I said before, this is really amplified by the millennial and the Gen Zs who are now, the dominant workforce out there.
Yeah. And you alluded earlier to how, we're looking at this as a marketing campaign, and with any marketing campaign, there is some level of increased financial investment. So what do you say to leaders who are reluctant to increase spending around retention?
Well, plan on doubly increasing your spending on talent acquisition and your salary base. Because again, it's going to cost more and take longer to find people. And that's why retention, again, the customer metaphor, Jennifer, is so perfect because, conceptually or mythically, it takes 7 times the amount of energy to acquire a customer as it does to retain a customer. Well, I don't know if that math works when it comes to employees, but the concept does. And that's why investing in retention is so important.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about stay interviews. You said they should be conducted maybe twice a year. So what form should a stay interview take? And obviously conducted by managers as opposed to HR, but how should we instruct our teams on how to make this happen?
Well, I think a stay interview begins with an understanding of the individual employee and what's important to them. So I'm not sure how to structure it exactly. I mean, the HR folks out there would know it better than I. But it's, how's it going? What do you like? What don't you like? Maybe red, yellow, green. But a temperature check of where they are. Next would be an informal but focused review of how they're performing. right? The worst thing that could happen is to learn at your year-end appraisal that you weren't doing this or that.
Right.
Year-end appraisal should be a review of what we've been talking about. There should be no surprises.
Mm-hmm.
So you incorporate that. But I think it's also important to review, here's your salary and bonus trajectory, right? Here's a review of the benefits that we offer, and are you taking advantage of all these different programs that we have? Here's your employee development program. So let's review your future that we've defined, and are we doing the right things, and are you doing the right things to get there? Because as much as the employee has the power in today's hiring environment, there is a requirement for accountability.
Mm.
We talked about managers and bosses. Accountability and performance management has never been more important.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe people want that, especially the people you want to work for you. They want that. They want to know what the goals, what the standards and expectations are, goals and objectives, and whether they're on track to meet them or not. And if not, don't give me a spanking, but help me find the right path to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's the shift from in 2009, you could get away with anything because no one was going to quit, right?
Right.
Nobody leaves a ship in the middle of a hurricane,
Right.
But as soon as that storm passes and the boats are back in the harbor, people will jump. And part of this great resignation, the big quit or the upgrade was that pent up demand to move.
Mm-hmm.
But it also says that by having these interviews and doing it on a structured basis, you can begin to gauge and see who's close and who's not.
So, how important is it in retention to empower our leaders to take action on the things that they find in a stay interview? And how do we do that?
Well, it's interesting because there are limits to everything. I hate this concept of employee bullying. I mean, an employee comes in and says, "Hey, Jennifer, I love working here, but I got this offer over here for another 20%, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to match it or I leave."
Mm-hmm.
You got to have that conversation because if you match it, what does that mean for everyone else that's there?
Right.
And I think that's part of the challenge. But I think from the stay interview, what you want to remain focused on is really being connected to that employee and ensuring that they know that you're connected to them and that you understand what's important to them, not just in terms of the job and the salary, but the trajectory and direction of where they're going. It's understanding what is and isn't possible. An employee comes in and says, "Hey, I really like this entry-level job you're giving me, but how do I become SVP of this in the next 12 months? Well, you can't. So there's a certain dose of reality that has to get injected to some of the inflated expectations that go along with some of the generational shifts we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a collective knowledge and learning across managers. In smaller businesses, it's a couple people. In big companies, it's a lot more. But it's understanding what is and isn't possible. And probably most important is once these interviews have been completed, is a debrief with HR and shared learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning in isolation is great, but I learn exponentially faster when I learn from others.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're continuously seeing that people are hearing this point come up about the working conditions, about this, that, whatever it may be, then you need to address it at a company basis versus at the individual basis. So it's that distinction between what are systematic infrastructure things that need to be done across a company or may not be done across a company, and what needs to be done or should be done at an individual level.
Mm-hmm. John, it's time for another quick break. We're going to be right back after this. You're listening to the Project HR podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Orqua, and my guest today is Joe Galvin, Chief Research Officer at Vistage, and we're talking about his article titled "Hiring Isn't Enough. Winning the Talent Game Starts with Retention." We are back. So, Joe, does onboarding play a role in retention?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does because we all know you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
And instinctively, I can think back, in the 7 or 8 different places I've started, I can think of 2 where within the first 90 minutes, I knew it wasn't going to be a good fit. And I may have stayed for a while for a variety of reasons, but it's that initial experience, that initial emotional connection,
Mm-hmm.
and humans are emotional beings, that dictates, I think, a large percentage of where that experience goes. Nobody signs up for a job and doesn't come in excited the first day, but what happens? Do they not have a desk for you? Do they not have a computer for you? Is your boss not there? You're working for a month, but you don't go to new hire training for a month.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to create that experience? And it's more than just balloons and stuff, but what are you doing to truly bring this person into their job, into their team, and onto this company journey and culture? Right? I know CEOs that spend the first 4 hours of every employee's first day
Mm,
is with the CEO,
mm,
talking about the mission, vision, and purpose of the organization,
mhm,
outlaying the strategy, and then talking individually about why people came, what their goals are, and really driving that human connection that we all seek and aspire to. Right? Jobs are very two-dimensional. You do this, you get paid that. But it's that third dimension, that humanality, that really connects people to it. And that's why onboarding is so important and shouldn't be overlooked.
mhm,
Because everyone's got a first day. What happens after that?
mm.
And I believe there's a direct correlation between positive onboarding, obviously speed to new hire performance and productivity, but also longevity, as people either connect or they don't connect to the culture, to the humans,
Mhm.
to the purpose of the business, and that dictates their commitment going forward or their lack of commitment.
One thing I definitely wanted to talk about was that in your article, you discussed the idea that ultimately retention is about creating a sense of workplace FOMO. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, fear of missing out,
Right,
FOMO.
right.
Uh, Create an environment that people want to be a part of. Create an environment where people are like, yeah, yeah, I want to come into the office today. Again, I need to distinguish between those that have to be in place, essential workers, and those that can be remote, knowledge workers, right? But this notion of office FOMO means you want to be there. You want to, so and it's more than just Taco Tuesday, although we do that. We have, the food trucks come up and we try to encourage people to come in 2 to 3 days a week. It's all about flexibility, choice, and responsibility, making sure that people know they have to be here and be there. We know that there's some activities, some tasks that are better done in isolation, depending upon what you do. And others like problem solving, innovation, collaboration, team building, culture activities have to be done together. So create this notion of when people are in the office, it's to take advantage of those unique things that have to be done in groups, right?
Mhm.
If the expectations are, look, we expect people to be in Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which is kind of the norm now. Some people are doing less, some people are doing more, but whatever. Everyone's trying to figure that out. But that means that you're reasonably expected to be there. So if there is a group meeting and for some reason you can't be there, and you're now that one person on a remote call, and everyone else is in the conference room, well, you're a second class citizen in that. So you
Mhm.
want to make sure that the activities that happen when people come in are activities that people want to be a part of because
Mm.
I want to sit next to people. I want to be active in that meeting.
Mhm.
If it's on a day, look, there's no reasonable expectation that people would be here on Monday or Friday, but we're going to have this meeting, and maybe some people are in.
Mm.
Well, in that environment, everybody should be on the Zoom call.
Mhm.
Just because 3 or 4 people are in and can sit in the office, that creates an unbalanced environment, right? So again, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here a bit, but
Mhm.
it's not creating equality. But what it means is that if there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday, and that meeting is about some new product that we're developing, some problem we're trying to solve, or some strategic meeting, I want to be there because I don't want to miss out on that
Mhm.
meeting,
Yeah.
right? I want to be there because if I'm not there, I'm a second class citizen.
Mhm.
For young folks, especially, I think it's really important to be in the office because you need to A, build your network, but B, have connections with the boss. So as a boss, make sure everyone knows here are the days that I'll be there and the days that I won't. So if you want to interact with me at a water cooler and have a conversation about the baseball game, well, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm going to be here.
Mhm.
If you choose to stay home, well, that's your choice. But if you want to come in and connect and do that second and third level human connection stuff, you
Mhm.
need to know that. I mean, nobody likes to commute, right? You
Right.
ask workers, nobody likes to commute and everybody
Right.
likes to work from home,
Yep.
right? So the commute thing's not going to, we can't change that, but it's creating those activities
Mhm.
and those situations and having a physical environment to accomplish that makes people want to come in and be part of those events
Yeah, for sure.
versus just all right, we expect you to be here. It's not Monday to Friday 9 to 5, now it's Tuesday to Thursday 9 to 5, and again people will come in, and this is why we have all these meetings that have no purpose,
Right.
because people are trying to fill their calendars to appear busy
Mhm.
versus if I'm working from home, if I can do my job in 3 hours and it takes you 8 hours, well, that's great because I can go work in the garden or take the dog for a walk or play with the kids,
Mhm.
do whatever,
Right.
because I'm delivering on my results.
Mhm.
If I'm in the office, I'm going to create or I'm going to attend senseless meetings because I got to fill my time somehow.
Yeah, for sure. So, as Chief Research Officer for Vistage, it makes sense that you would be engaged in employee retention in all aspects of building stronger organizations. Can you tell me a little bit about Vistage's work?
Yeah, Vistage is an amazing organization. It's been around for 63 years. It was founded in Milwaukee, and we provide CEO coaching and peer advisory groups for CEOs, business owners, business leaders, key executives, and small and mid-sized businesses.
Hmm.
We believe that leaders learn from leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So we create an environment where leaders can be exposed to some of the top thought leaders in the speakers that come in and present. But more importantly, it creates a forum of trust and respect where CEOs can bring forward the issues and challenges they're facing and get the independent, objective perspectives of 14 or 15 other CEOs.
Mm-hmm.
We form groups, and these groups are non-competitive. So you'll have someone in manufacturing, someone in healthcare, someone in legal, someone in tech, someone in construction, someone in this, someone in that. And you really get this dynamic and diverse perspectives because these are all leaders who are dealing with the same issues, wrestling with the same challenges, but in very different contexts based upon their business.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an amazing group of our members are amazing, and the people that run these groups called Vistage Chairs is just an amazing community of humans that I'm just grateful to have the opportunity and the privilege to work with them.
And Vistage offers webinars and events also, right?
Yes, all of our content, we aspire to help all small and mid-sized business CEOs become better leaders, make better decisions, and get better results. So if you go to Vistage and you go to the Vistage Research Center, you'll find that about 95% of our content is available to everyone. I lead Vistage Research. My background is Gartner. I was a longtime Gartner employee back in the day. So we brought a Gartner-esque approach to our research reports. We do a confidence index on a quarterly basis. We do a monthly small business confidence index report. And what's amazing about it is that I get 1,500, 1,700 CEOs respond to my questions. Now, to get that many responses to a survey as a research guy is amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I know for a fact they're all CEOs because they're self-identified. They're in our community.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, again, just over the weekend on Monday's print edition, there was a feature article on small business written by Ruth Simon that featured our research data and our survey data.
Nice.
So we collect that data, we get it from our folks, and we turn it into reports. But you can get at our research site, we present both the content we create plus the content we curate from our members, from our chairs, from our speakers, and all stuff that's always focused on what CEOs tell us are most important to them.
So on that note, where can I go to find out more about you, about Vistage, about the work that you do?
Real easy. Go to vistage.com. It's vistage.com. And there you'll see our landing page. And then you go over to where it says resources, and you go down to the Vistage Research Center. And that's where you have access to the blogs that we post, the content we curate. We've launched this concept called CEO Pulse, where we try to aggregate content around a single topic. We just launched one in early April on hiring. So one of the most powerful sessions I would recommend people to go is we had 3 of our chairs, one located in Dallas, one in Cincinnati, and one in LA, spent a month talking to their members and their groups about hiring. And then we came back and I asked them all these questions, and it's just, there's so much goodness in that 60-minute webinar that it's hard not to spend the rest of the time talking about it. But we always want to post up. For some people, the full Vistage experience is right. For other people, they just want to step in when they can, and that's great too. We want to help all CEOs be better.
Perfect. And I want to let everybody know that those links will be included in this episode's companion guide. So be sure to unlock that today at projectionsinc.com/podcast. Right now, though, Joe, it is time for our lightning round questions. These are questions I ask of every guest of the podcast. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So our first question is always a topic showdown. In this episode, we've been talking about employee retention and inspiring workplace FOMO. In your opinion, which of these songs best expresses these efforts? I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith or Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley?
Okay. I think there's 2 roles. I think if I'm a CEO, I'm never going to give you up.
Okay.
Because I want that employee to know I'm never going to give it up.
Yep.
But if I'm a worker, I don't want to miss a thing because office FOMO. I want to be there. I don't want to miss the conversation. I want the tacos, whatever that is.
Right.
So I think the answer is yes.
All right. I agree with that one. All right. Next question. What is the best book you've read recently?
Oh, boy. Okay, a couple things. One, I read a lot for business, but for entertainment, my son turned me onto a book called The Biggest Bluff by Maria Konnikova. She's a Columbia PhD on psychology, I think, but her focus was on decision making. And so she jumped into the world of professional poker, trying to find out, is it because I'm smart or I'm lucky? So you're sitting at the table with $1 million on the table and the math says do this. and then the card flips. Is it right or wrong? Was that luck or was that skill? Fascinating read, really fun, and enjoyed it.
Yeah, love that.
A business book that I read on a continuous basis, like when I get 10 minutes waiting for a plane or something, is called The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. So much of my job is creativity, and she is a ballet choreographer in New York.
Yep.
And so she has to do a new show, a new ballet. How do you do that? Do you just stare out the window until the idea strikes you? No, she has a very definitive process called the creative habit that she goes through that creates a foundation for the creativity. And the last thing I would say would be, I would encourage everyone to read the first part of 1984. The second and third parts, it gets really dark and really dystopian, but if you just read that first part where war is peace and don't believe your eyes, irrespective of where you are on the political spectrum, I think it's important to just think about that for a minute.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. All right, next question. What's your favorite thing about the work that you do?
Two things. One is again, I mentioned our members and our chairs. These are just amazing humans that I learn from them all the time. But my favorite thing is the pure creativity of my job. When I came into this job, my CEO, Sam Reese, he gave me a blank whiteboard, a new box of dry erase markers, and said, I want you to create Vistage research. And I said, well, what do you think? He says, I don't know, figure it out. So from that beginning to, okay, what's our next report going to be? And what's unique and what's different? So it's this pure creativity work that is just, I haven't used an alarm clock in the 6 years that I've been here.
Love that. Love that. All right, next question. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
This would be my first presentation as a Gartner analyst. Ironically enough, it was September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11.
Yeah.
But I gave my very first presentation as a Gartner analyst, and one of our legendary analysts at the time, a guy named Al Nell, came up, he slapped me on the back, said, Joe, that was great. And let me give you one piece of advice. And what's that, Al? He says, always give away your best stuff. I go, why would I do that? He said, because it will force you to create more.
Love it.
So, we're in this creative business, and new thoughts and ideas have a half-life of a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Give away your best stuff, because it'll force you to dig deeper, think harder, and come up with something even stronger.
Yeah. And on that note, what inspires you?
Everyday greatness that I see in everyday people. I marvel at, I'm blessed. I've got 3 grandchildren that live close to me. The girls are the twins. They're not twins, their cousins are 2, and Logan, the boy's 4. And I just am inspired by their learning process and their curiosity, and Ruth's fearlessness and Taylor's somewhat unsureness. I look at my children and how they've evolved into these wonderful adults, these career professionals, and have them wrestling with the challenges of parenthood and now home ownership. And then my amazing wife of 42 years, who has matriculated into this super uber grandmother of babies and continues to challenge everything that I say and do that's stupid. So I look forward, and I'm inspired. I'm inspired by the everyday greatness that I see in everyday people.
Yeah.
And it motivates me to try to be a better version of me today, at least.
Yeah, we would all be inspired by that. So thanks for joining me today on this week's episode of Project HR, Joe.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's my pleasure. I hope I had a few ideas that get people to think. I always say my job is not to answer questions, it's to raise questions, because only you can decide what's right for what you're trying to achieve, accomplish, or avoid.
Yeah, for sure. I want to thank our listeners too. Once again, this is your reminder to grab the companion guide for this episode at projectionsinc.com/podcast. If you'd like to be on Project HR, or you know someone who would, feel free to email us at projecthr@iriconsultants.com. And last but certainly not least, to make sure you never miss an episode of Project HR, I hope you'll subscribe to the podcast. Drop us a line, leave us a review, or give us a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's it from me for now. Let's make it a great day at work.